Alright, so we're going to take a look here at the example game with the Grafty deck. Um, this was actually pretty awesome. I was playing a couple classic games that, wanted to find a really good one to showcase the deck for my article here, and I actually ended up playing against someone, set the table as classic and ended up playing in a tribal game. So, I was talking about in my article, this deck is actually tribal legal. It is mutant tribal. Thanks to Simic and Graft, all those creatures were mutants. But my opponent was actually playing, interestingly enough, Volvers. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, you'll see it in a second. But I used to play around with that a lot when it, came to dual lands and such. But he was actually playing with all basics. I gave him lots of props. It was a really cool game. But let's just check it out. So opening hand, pretty good. 3 lands is great. We have 2 Simic Initiates. So we're not going to have a 2-drop, but we will still get a play on turn 2. We have a Hydropon to get some of those early counters, and then our big badass Fungal Behemoth. So things are looking pretty fantastic. I'm gonna get a bit of early aggro going with these guys, but unfortunately nothing too big too fast. Draw into a Plaxcaster Frogling, which is great because we do have the mana for 3 already. We'll be able to get that into play, which is awesome. This is one of the better Graft cards because you do have that Shroud ability on it. You have to be careful spending mana, if you get in a situation where you think you're going to need it. So trying to get into an early lead. Here I did decide to make the play with the Hydropon first, because that way when the frog comes in next turn, it can come in as a 4/4 creature as opposed to 3/3, grafting 1 off of the Hydropon. Did this because my opponent has only played 2 Farce at this point in time, so I'm thinking he has no removal, and I can go nuts with creatures. And he's made no other play, so I figured this was the strongest thing for me to do, trying to be a bit aggressive. But black comes down, and I'm thinking, crap, okay, he does have kill spells, we definitely want to get this frog into play as fast as possible. And he uses Kadama's Reach, fetches out a Plains and a Mountain. So now I'm curious, he's playing at least 4 colors in basics, so things are going to get interesting fast. Hit land drop number 4. At this point in time, I could, and perhaps should have, dropped the Fungal Behemoth out on this turn, since I would be able to attack big on next turn. It is currently a 7/7 in this board state. I would be able to, and you definitely want to do this, just a heads up again, is when you play the Behemoth, you want to make sure no matter where that token is coming from, you want to graft a 1/1 token onto the Fungal Behemoth, so that if you get a Rootkin afterwards, it will add another counter and just keep making your Fungal Behemoth bigger. Doing that just increases the number of 1/1 counters on the field. So here, perhaps I made a misplay and should have put out the Behemoth, but I did play the Frogling instead. You see, kind of unfortunately, draw into a second one and swing for 2. Again, maybe it would have been good because next turn, he would have been a 7/7 there, but I could have played a frog to follow it up, and it would have been the 10/10. So in retrospect, I think maybe I did make a bad play there. Opponent hits land drop number 5, does not play the Plains that I know he has in hand, so I am a little curious what he was doing. But now he selects all his lands and does actually end up playing Guy's Balance, and this is pretty cool. You pay 4, sacrifice 5 lands, and search for a basic land of each type, put it into play. Really great, and it gets even crazier as he taps all 5 lands and plays a full-kicked Rack Evolver. This is going to cause all kinds of trouble. I really need to find myself a spider, and again, after this point, well, you'll see here in a second. So now I hit into Tezzert's Gambit, which I will play for the draw. This is kind of I thought this was the good play here, because it is going to turn these to 2 2s. I get an additional counter here, and my frog is going to be a 5/5. Again, perhaps I should have played the Fungal Behemoth. I really think I held on to this way too long. It is the big, nasty creature. My opponent may have removal, but you really want to get that out so you can do as much damage as possible with it. Sorry about that, knocked into the microphone. Out of the land choices, obviously going to play Terramorphic to siphon land out of the deck instead of the Harbor. And, I also make another mistake here, and this is probably what caused me a misclick. The frog, you're clicking too fast. It doesn't actually click to, say, attacking, and then you hit F4. And this is what happens, you don't attack. I should have attacked through. He probably would not have blocked with the Rack Evolver and gone down to 10. But this is, I said Volver Tribe. If you're familiar with this set of creatures, you'll see a couple more of them here he does put out. So, I really, if you look through this game, my mistakes really blew it, but I felt this game was great because not only is it classic, but it is a tribal matchup as well, unintentionally, and you get to see a lot of the interactions with the creatures. So now it comes down Volver number 2. It is a Necrovolver, and when kicked, he gets Trample and Lifelink. Oh, I'm sorry, these guys are actually pre-Lifelink, so they do have that stacking life gain ability. Excuse me. Trying not to start choking and coughing in the mic here, but so he does attack, and it does up him back to 20, which is a disappointment. Now I draw into a Rootkin, which is great. I'm going to play this Harbor finally and put out the Rootkin. And this leaves me 2 mana open. I can use the Frogling's ability to give it Shroud, or give any creature Shroud. Another thing you want to be aware of, you see I attacked through for 6, he only had the Volver. He could have chosen to block with it, but did not. He would have lost it. I would have been at an advantage. So a smart move on his part, because he does have this evasion and the life gain that I cannot handle. You'll see another misplay on my part here. He plays the Aria, which is, it's going to suck. It does give all his creatures +1/+1 counters at the beginning of his upkeep. My only hope here is to draw into a Seal. I do have answers for it, so I wasn't totally worried, but there's not much I can do at this point. Misplay here, he is going to attack through with the Volver. I take 5 going to 10, and the misplay is kind of at the end of turn here. What I should have done with this 2 mana, since it was obvious I was not going to need the Frog's ability, I should have taken the chance and used the Rootkin's ability to take a counter from the Hydropon and move it on to the Rootkin. That would have given me the power power I needed to swing through with this as well and destroy the Necrovolver. But because I did not do it, I did not have the opportunity. Now I do realize why the hell have I not played my Behemoth. At this point in time, it's coming in as a 22/22 creature. Make yet another misplay on this. It comes into play, all these Grafts come in, and I said you want to make sure that you use the ability, take the counter from somewhere, but definitely take a counter for your Behemoth. So what my plan was to do is obviously take it from the Hydropon, which is basically just a Graft stick. It's just there to add counters to all my creatures as they come in. So I'm, going through and I'm saying no, 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 and I hit no on the Hydropon. Crap. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, I don't want to move a counter from my Frogling because then I can't attack this turn. So what I decided to do is move 1 from the Rootkin to drop it to a 4/4, and I know that I can pump it up again and use its ability to steal a counter back from the Hydropon. So basically I did end up moving the counter in a roundabout way from the Hydropon to the Behemoth, but it's going to cost me 2 mana where it would have been free. Leaving the 2 mana open, not playing the Expedition, I'm pretty good at mana at this point in time. What I really need is to keep my creatures on the table, to keep moving counters to my Rootkin, to keep in this game. So we're also at a point in time, I'm now down to 10 life. This Rakvolver is going to end up being a 6/6 with the ability from the Aria. So I am going to go down to 4, and the only thing that's going to save me at this point in time is I need the top deck of the Spider to handle the Rakvolver, because he's going to just attack through and go back to his full life yet again off that. So plays now, next Volver is Anavolver, another great one. Excuse me, this gives him not only the counters, but it gives him flying, and he can pay 3 life to regenerate. Volvers are great, they're a lot of fun. Like I said, I used to try and make them work in Tribal as well. So he attacks through, like I said, he goes up almost back to 20. I do remember this time to move the counter from the Rootkin, but he should basically be a 6/6 at this point in time. Actually, he should be a 7/7 because I should not have misclicked. So this is really going to cost me in the end here. You see, this Rootkin's going to come down. You'll understand why it cost me in a second. Triggers all these Graft abilities. What I'm running into is I need to just all-out attack this turn. He only has 2 blockers. I have a lot of really big creatures, including this giant fungal behemoth. So we know right away he is going to be forced to block the fungal behemoth. Now, if you take this guy out of the equation, I am sitting with 2 4/4 guys. He's probably not going to block. A 7/7 frog, and this Cytoplast should have had an additional counter, so he should have been bigger than this. At least 1 additional counter. I'm not going to double check my math on this because I'm horrible at it. But he should have at least been a 7/7 if I did not miss that that counter move from the previous turn, the first turn where he was in play. So watch what's going to happen here. If you do the math, you're going to see what's going to happen. And where I really gain is kind of the fact that these guys don't have lifelink, or even then I could be wrong. But the fact that this guy doesn't, this life gain trigger is a triggered ability. All I need to do is hit him for 19 to get this win. And how he blocks, now he could have done this differently, but because he decides to block this guy, his math is better than mine. It's going to get to the point where, you see I'm moving another counter, so it is a 7/7, but he would have been an 8/8, and had he actually blocked that way, this would have been game over. Hopefully, he was smart enough, if I did have that extra 1 damage, he would have been blocking the Frogling or the Cytoplast Rootkin instead. Either way, my misplays really, really cost me this game. Got him down to 1 life, and I have no answer for the Rackabolver. Really needed the spider, really needed to make the play happen, but did not do it. But I still thought, even though this is a loss, it was worth showing to you. You see he's done kind of a cool thing too. He's using the Evolution Vat, kind of along the same lines where he's working with these +1/+1 counters. So yeah, you see a couple misplays cost me, but I did still want to showcase this deck. Let's move this for a second. Just because I felt, not only was it cool because it was a classic tribal matchup, but because we got to see an interaction. You got to see the behemoth. You see I was talking about in the article where it's really kind of great sometimes to just hard cast it for 4 instead of spending it, especially in this deck. Other green decks you may want to suspend it to pump creatures every turn, but in this deck every creature on the field that you play is going to make it bigger. So learn from my mistake and play earlier than I did. Make sure not to forget the mana and the moving counters from the Rootkins, and just little stuff like that. So there you go. Hope though, even though it was a loss, you still got something out of it.